Welcome back, and welcome to guide number 6 in our五运六气series. Today's subject is Shèng Fù, Dominations and Revenge. This is one of the most sophisticated ideas in the whole system and one of the most clinically useful because it explains a pattern every practitioner has seen but few can name. The patient who improves in the middle of the year and then out of nowhere deteriorates with a completely different set of symptoms. Shèng Fù is nature's self-correcting mechanism. It operates specifically in the deficiency years, the Buji years, where the annual period is weak. When that happens, another element dominates, and then inevitably a revenge chi rises up to restore balance. Over this guide, we'll define both halves of the mechanism, map all 5 deficiency types, walk through the timing, lay out herbal and acupuncture protocols for each phase. Look at the source passages in the Sù Wèn Chapter 69 and finish with a complete worked example. The year 2025, Yi Si, a metal deficiency year. Let's begin. Here's our roadmap in 8 steps. First, what Shèng Fù actually is, the self-correcting mechanism. Second, the complete reference table covering all 5 deficiency element types. Third, 5 detailed clinical cards, 1 per element with climate signatures, disease patterns, and watch points. Fourth, the timing, when domination peaks and when revenge strikes. Fifth, the herbal and acupuncture protocols for both phases. Sixth, the classical source passages from Sù Wèn Chapter 69. Seventh, a set of clinical case patterns and a decision framework. And eighth, the full worked example, 2025 Yi Si, a metal deficiency year. Let's take them in order. Section 1. What is Shèng Fù? In short, it is nature's self-correcting response to imbalance, and it operates specifically in the deficiency years, the Buji years. When the annual period is weak, the mechanism has 2 phases, domination and revenge. And a single elegant principle ties them together. Let me define each. Shèng Fù has 2 phases. The first, on the left, is Shèng, domination. In a deficiency year, when the annual period is weak, the element that normally controls that period steps in and dominates instead. That dominating energy is the Shèng Qì. The important consequence is that the year's climate and disease patterns then reflect the dominating element, not the original Da-Un. So in wood deficiency year, it is a wind that prevails. It is the dryness of metal, the element that controls wood. The second phase on the right is Fu, revenge. Once the Shèng Qì has peaked and run its course, then some of the deficient period rises up to attack it. That retaliatory energy is the Fu Qi. The crucial clinical point is that it can arrive suddenly and severely, so patients who seem to be improving may relapse without warning. The best way to feel this is the metaphor in the gold band. Think of it as an immune response, a pathogen the Shèng Qì overwhelms the body's Qi, and the body mounts a counter-response, the Fu Qi. But the counter-response can itself overshoot, producing a brand new set of symptoms in a different organ system. That is precisely why deficiency year patients recover mid-year and then suddenly deteriorate. Our whole clinical job in these years is to see the revenge coming. The key to the whole mechanism is one principle, captured in the phrase, the son takes revenge for the mother. To understand it, you only need the 5-phase generation cycle shown across the middle. Wood generates fire, fire generates earth, earth generates metal, metal generates water, and water generates wood. Closing the loop. Each element generates the next. The next element is its son. Now the rule, when the element is attacked by the dominating Shèng Qì, its son rises to defend it, and the son does this by attacking the element that was controlling its parent. Walk through the example in the green box. In a wood deficiency year, wood is weak, so metal dominates, because metal controls wood. Then fire, which is wood's son, since wood generates fire, rises up and attacks metal, because fire controls metal. The son defends its parents by striking the parent's oppressor. The single logic generates every row of the table we'll see next. The Fu Qi is always the son of the deficient element, and it always attacks the Shèng Qì. Section 2 puts all 5 deficiency types into a single reference table. For each deficient element, it shows which year it occurs in, which element dominates as the Shèng Qì, which element takes revenge as the Fu Qi, and the son relation that explains why. This one table is the backbone of the whole guide. Here is the master reference, all 5 deficiency types in one table, color-coded by element. Let me read it down. In a wood deficiency year, the Jing years, such as 2017 and 2027, metal dominates because it controls wood, and fire, wood's son, takes revenge by attacking metal. In a fire deficiency year, the gray years like 2023, water dominates, and the earth, fire's son, takes revenge. In an earth deficiency year, the Ji years like 2019 and 2029, wood dominates, and the metal, earth's son, takes revenge. In a metal deficiency year, the Yi years, including 2025, our worked example, fire dominates, and the water metal sons takes revenge. And in a water deficiency year, the Xin years like 2021 and 2031, earth dominates, and wood, water's son, takes revenge. Here's how to read any row clinically. As a note at the bottom says, the Shèng Qì organ becomes hyperactive, the Fu Qi organ suddenly turns aggressive in the second half of the year, and the deficient organ itself is the suppressed root throughout. Hold those 3 rows in mind, and every deficiency year becomes legible. Section 3 turns each row of that table into a full clinical card. For every deficiency element, I will show the dominating Shèng Qì and the climate disease it brings, then the revenge Fu Qi and its mechanism and signs, and finally the clinical watch point and the herbs to have ready. These are drawn for Sù Wèn Chapter 69. Here are the first 2 cards. On the left, wood deficiency, the Jing years, governing the liver and gallbladder. The Shèng Qì is metal, dryness prevails, with harsh cutting winds, and crops that fail to ripen. The deficient liver and gallbladder are suppressed. Tendon problems, blurred vision, irritability, while the lung and large intestine become overactive, with a dry cough, respiratory, and skin issues. Then the Fu Qi is a fire, wood, sun, which attacks the metal, sudden intense heat, a flaming summer quality even in autumn, with cardiovascular flares, fever, mouth sores, and palpitation. So in spring, you nourish your liver blood and protect the tendons. Through summer and autumn, you watch for the sudden hot fire flare with the Huang Nian and the Lian Xin ready. On the right, fire deficiency, the gray years, governing the heart and the small intestine. The Shèng Qì is water, cold prevails. Frost and ice come out of season. Cold arrives early. The heart and small intestines are suppressed. Hot yang deficiency, cold limbs, depression, while the kidney and bladder overact with low back pain, edema, and fear. The Fu Qi is earth, fire, the sun, attacking the water, sudden dampness, heavy rain, flood and flooding, bringing digestive disorders, abdominal fullness, and worsening edema. So all year you tonify hot yang and warm the channels. And the second half, you watch for sudden digestive collapse with the Baiju and the Fuling ready. The next two cards on the left, Earth deficiency. The Ji years, governing the spleen and stomach. The Shèng Qì is wood, wind prevails, with unpredictable winds and erratic late summer weather. The spleen and stomachs are suppressed, poor digestion, muscle wasting, worry, while the liver and gallbladder overact, with headaches, dizziness, tendon issues, and anger. The Fu Qi is metal, earth is sun, attacking the wood, sudden dryness, harsh cutting winds, and early frost, bringing a respiratory flare, dry cough, and skin issues. So you support the spleen and resolve the liver overacting all year, and watch for sudden respiratory flare in the second half with Chuan Bei Mu and the Shang Bai Pi ready. On the right, metal deficiency, the Yi years, and not to the star because 2025 is one of these and will be our worked example. It governs the lung and large intestine. The Shèng Qì is fire, flaring heat prevails, with scorching summers, early heat, and drought. The lung and large intestines are suppressed, dry cough, constipation, grief, while the heart and small intestine overact with fever, inflammation, and palpitations. The Fu Qi is water, metal, sun, attacking the fire, sudden cold rain, an unexpected cold snap, frost, with kidney cold conditions flaring and low back pain worsening. So you moisten the lung and support the large intestine all year and watch for sudden cold or kidney flare in the second half with Shu Di, Du Zhong, and Tu Si Ji ready. The last card on the left, water deficiency, the Xin years, governing the kidney and bladder. The Shèng Qì is earth, dampness and heaviness prevails, with flooding, excessive rain, and humidity. The kidney and bladders are suppressed, lower back weakness, bone issues, fear, while the spleen and stomach overact with digestive disorders, edema, and heaviness. The Fu Qi is wood, water is the sun, attacking the earth, sudden strong winds, storms, uprooted trees, bringing liver qi uprising, headaches, dizziness, and anger. So you tonify the kidney and support the bones and the essence all year, and watch for sudden liver wind flare in the second half with the Tianma, Guoteng, and Longgu ready. On the right is the universal way to read every one of these cards. First, the deficient organ is the root. You support it all year long. no matter what else is happening. Second, the dominating Shèng Qì organ is hyperactive first, and its climax sets the disease picture on the first half. Third, the revenge Fu Qi organ flares suddenly in the second half, giving a new symptom picture in a different organ system. And fourth, the heart of the whole art have the revenge phase herbs ready before the rebound arrives. In Shèng Fù years, anticipation is everything. Section 4 is about timing, which is what turns this theory into preventative practice. Sù Wèn Chapter 69 is clear about when the Shèng Qì peaks, when the rebound comes. Get the timing right, and you can treat the revenge before your patient ever feels it. The two phases fall in the two halves of the year. On the left, the Shèng Qì dominate from the very start of the deficiency year, and is strongest through steps 1 to 3. So patients show its symptoms early, and those symptoms intensify toward mid-year. On the right, the Fu Qi arises only after Shèng Qì has peaked, and its arrival is typically sudden and unexpected, bringing a new symptom picture. Crucially, the severity of a revenge is proportional to the severity of the domination. A fiercer Shèng Qì produces a fiercer Fu Qi. The dark band carries the line from Sù Wèn Chapter 69. Where there is excess domination, there will certainly be revenge. It is the constant way of heaven and earth. In other words, Fu Qi is a law, not a possibility. In every deficiency year, where domination is active, revenge will arrive. The only variables are when and how severely, and those depend on the strength of Shèng Qì and the patient's own constitution. Practically, the transition needs to begin around the 4th and the 5th step of the 6th Qi cycle. Watch that handover closely, and the moment the new picture appears, switch protocols. Here is the preventative workflow, 6 steps. 1. Identify the Shèng Qì early and treat it from the start of the year. 2. Warn your patients explicitly. Tell them you may feel better mid-year, then develop new symptoms, and that this is normal for this year type. Setting the expectation prevents alarm and keeps them in treatment. 3. The gold step. Prepare the Fu Qi remedy in advance, so the formula is ready before it's needed. 4. Monitor the transition point around the 4th to 5th step of the 6th Qi cycle. 5. The moment the Fu Qi arrives, switch to the revenge phase protocol immediately. And 6. Running underneath all of it, keep supporting the originally deficient element, because that is the root of the whole pattern. Notice the 3 middle steps are highlighted. Preparing the remedy, watching the handover, and the switching on time. That window is where the clinical skill really lives. Section 5 gives you the treatment protocols. The principle is simple, but easy to forget. Always treat both phases. In the first half, you manage the active domination. In the second half, you meet the inevitable rebound. Let me give you the herbs and point for each phase, organized by deficiency element. This is the first half of protocol, the Shèng Qì phase. The governing principle in the panel below is threefold. Tonify the deficient element, calm the dominating element, and prevent further depletions. Reading the table by deficiency. For wood deficiency, nourish liver blood with Bai Shao, Dang Gui, Guo Qi Zi, and He Shou Wu. using liver 3, liver 8, spleen 6, and gallbladder 34. For fire deficiency, warm hot yang with 桂枝, fuji, renshen, and zhiganchao, using heart 7, pericardium 6, ren 14, and bladder 15. For earth deficiency, strengthen the spleen with baiju, fuling, renshen, and Huang, using spleen 6, stomach 36, ren 12, and bladder 20. For metal deficiency, moisten the lung with Bai He, Mai Dong, Sha Shen, and Yu Zhu, using lung 7, lung 9, stomach 36, and bladder 13. And for water deficiency, tonify the kidney with Shu Di, Shan Yao, Gu Qi, and Du Zhong, using kidney 3, kidney 7, ren 4, and bladder 23. Alongside the herbs and the needles, advise a patient to rest during the peak dominating period to avoid the triggers that aggravate the dominating element, and to eat in a way that supports the deficient organ. This is the second half of protocol, the Fu Qi phase, where you support the organ that the revenge Qi is attacking by deficiency type. In a wood deficiency year, the fire revenge, meaning you cool half fire with Huang Lian, Lian Zhi, Mai Dong, and Sheng Di, using heart 8, pericardium 8, and large intestine 11. In a fire deficiency year, the earth revenge, meaning you drain spleen dam with Baizhu, Zhi Xie, Fu Ling, and Yi Ren. In an earth deficiency year, the metal revenge means you clear lung heat with the Bai He, Chuan Bai Mu, Pi Pai Ye, and Sang Bai Pi. In a metal deficiency year, the water revenge means you nourish kidney in with Zhi Mu, Huang Bai, Han Lian Chao, and Nu Zhen Zi. And in a water deficiency year, the wood revenge means you soothe liver qi with Chai Hu, Bai Shao, Xiang Fu, and Chuan Lian Zhi. The gold panel gives the guiding rule from Sù Wèn Chapter 70. Treat by the nature of the disease. Heat with cooling herbs, cold with warming, damp with drying, dryness with moistening. And when the symptoms don't fit in the differentiation, treat the root, not the branch. And in Shèng Fu years, the root is always originally deficient element. So whichever phase you are in, you never stop supporting that deficient organ underneath. Section 6 takes us back to the source, Sù Wèn Chapter 69, the comprehensive discourse on changes resulting from qi interactions. This is the primary classical text for Shèng Fu theory. I'll give you the essence of what the chapter says for each deficiency in paraphrase so you can hear the imagery the ancient visions used. Here is the essence of what Sù Wèn Chapter 69 says for each deficiency. Paraphrase from the unschooled and the Tesno translation. Notice the recurring structure. In each case, the deficient organ received the evil first, and then the revenge strikes the dominator. For wood deficiency, dryness prevails everywhere, and the spleen receives evil. Undigested food, heaviness, abdominal fullness, then the revenge brings a flaming summer-like heat. For fire deficiency, cold prevails and the heart receives evil. Chest, flank, and the back pain, cold limbs. Then the revenge brings pressure and the massive rain. For earth deficiency, wind prevails and the stomach receives evil. Reduced eating, heaviness, and intestinal rumbling. Then the revenge brings a harsh early autumn. For metal deficiency, flaming fire is active and the lung receives evil. Shoulder and back pain, cough, breathlessness, then the revenge brings a sudden cold rain, even ice and snow in summer. And for water deficiency, dampness prevails, and the kidney receives evil. Fullness, heaviness, low back pain, then the revenge brings a sudden strong wind that bends the planet and scatters the sand and the pebbles. The imagery is vivid, but the clinical logic underneath is exactly the table we built earlier. Section 7 is about recognizing these patterns in the clinic and deciding what to do. There are 4 typical patterns across a deficiency year, and seeing which one you are looking at tells you immediately how to act. 4 clinical patterns cover almost everything you will meet in a deficiency year. Pattern 1 is the Shèng Qì presentation. Early in the year, the patient shows a condition in the dominating organ. For instance, in a metal deficiency year, a cough, a dry throat, and a respiratory infection in spring. The action is to cool the dominator and tonify the deficient organ together. Pattern 2 is mid-year improvement. Symptoms ease and energy returns because the Shèng Qì is exhausting itself. The danger is reading this as a cure. It's temporary, so you don't stop treatment. You explain the coming rebound and prepare the Fu Qi remedy now. Pattern 3 is the Fu Qi sudden flare. The patient deteriorates suddenly with the new symptoms in a different organ, usually in the second half. The same metal deficiency pattern now develops low back pain and cold limbs. The action is to switch to the revenge protocol immediately. And the pattern 4 is the constitutional background. Patients born in a deficiency year may carry a weaker version of the element for life. So in matching year, their symptoms are more pronounced. There you combine constitutional treatment with the annual Shèng Fù analysis for the most precise approach. Section 8 applies everything to a real year, 2025 Yi Si. The heavenly stem Yi makes is a metal deficiency year, so Shèng Fù is fully in play. Let me run the complete framework step by step. Let's run 2025 Yi Si in full. The header sets the frame. The stem Yi makes it as a metal deficiency year, so fire dominates as the Shèng Qì. Water takes revenge as the Fu Qi, and the Si Tian is wind wood. Step 1. Identify the Shèng Qì. Metal is controlled by fire, so fire dominates. The heart and the small intestine become hyperactive while the deficient lung and large intestines are suppressed. Step 2. Identify the Fu Qi. Metal's sun is water, so water takes revenge by attacking fire. The kidney and bladder surge in the second half, and the heart now comes under attack. Step 3. The first half planned from January to July. Moisten and tonify the lung qi with Bai He, Mai Dong, and Sha-Shen, and cool the heart fire with Huang Nian and Lian Zhi. Using lung 7, lung 9, large intestine 4, heart 8, and pericardium 8. Step 4. The second half planned from July to December. Protect the heart yang with Guizhi and Fuji, and tonify the kidney with Shu Di and Tu Siji, using heart 7, pericardium 6, ren 14, kidneys 3, and bladder 23. And start warning patient from June. Step 5 is an important twist. The Si Tian is wind wood, and wood generates fire, so it amplifies the Shèng Qì. The fire domination, DC is especially intense. So step up half fire management in the first half. And step 6, patience education. Tell your lung patient that their lungs are more vulnerable this year, that you will support them throughout, and that around July, they may notice lower back or urinary changes, the natural rebound, which you've already prepared for. Let me close with the key takeaways. 1. Shèng Fù is nature's self-corrections in the deficiency year. First, domination, then revenge. 2. The Shèng Qì is the element that controls the weak period, dominating in the first half, and the Fu Qi is the deficient element sun, taking revenge in the second half. 3. The sun always attacks the dominator. That's the principle, which means the revenge organ is predictable from the very start of the year. 4. The Fu Qi is a law, not a possibility. Only its timing and the severity vary, so prepare the remedy before it arrives. 5. Treat both phases, but never stop supporting the deficient root element all year long. And 6. Our worked example 2025 is a metal deficiency year where fire dominates and the water takes revenge, with the wind wood Si Tian amplifies the fire. As for what's next, Guide 7 covers the 19 disease mechanism from Sù Wèn Chapter 74, the diagnostic backbone of the Chinese medicine. Guide 8 is the Southern Hemisphere adaptation, and the 2026 annual health guide brings the whole system into practical month-by-month plan. If this guide helps you, please share with your colleagues and students. Thank you for joining me. Take care of yourself in harmony with the Qi of the year, and I'll see you in the next guide.